Hey, good afternoon. This is a response again, believe it or not, to one of Jeff Meacham's newest videos on Talk Wrestling HD for his Hell in a Cell week, if you will. And today he talked about not just about Hell in a Cell, but he talked about the fact that, you know, the Gimmick PPVs. He talked about them and which ones he liked, which ones he didn't. And he asked people like myself what we thought about it. And, you know, quite honestly, what do I think about the Gimmick PPVs? Honestly, I really have no problem with them at all. I mean, the only problem I do have is that they're too close together. Like, for example, the Hell in a Cell pay-per-view this Sunday. It's only 2 weeks after they had Night of Champions. So, that's kind of a little weird. Maybe make it 3 weeks or something like that would be better, but 2 weeks doesn't work. But anyway, besides that, I really have no problem with them at all. I mean, I can understand some people have problems with them and some of the situations they have in the matches. I mean, I can understand people having a problem with, say, bragging rights and the fact that one of the main matches of the evening is the 5-on-5 Raw vs. SmackDown match. I mean, I can understand people saying that should be saved for Survivor Series, but this is what you don't get. Here's what you don't get. The Raw vs. SmackDown match is not an elimination match. It's a regular 5-on-5 tag team match. That's why it happens on bragging rights. It's not elimination. Now, as far as the TLC match goes, I have no problem with that one either. It gives you a lot of high spots and everything, depending on what wrestlers are used in what matches. Money in the Bank I have no problem with either. Elimination Chamber I have no problem with either. I mean, a lot of these pay-per-views, people say it shouldn't be around, shouldn't be around, and say, too gimmicky, and, shouldn't even exist because of the fact that, WWE can't do certain things anymore. It doesn't mean that it can't be good. I remember when they did, what did they do this year? I mean, they switched up the calendar a lot this year. Really doesn't help out much. But one of the things, Money in the Bank. When they introduced the fact that they were going to do that as a pay-per-view, a lot of people were wondering, is that it for Money in the Bank at WrestleMania? No. You see, Money in the Bank at WrestleMania is a special kind of Money in the Bank match. Now, unless WWE goes through with the fact that they might unify all the championships, then yeah, Money in the Bank pay-per-view may be the only place you get to see it at. But then again, if they don't decide to unify all the championships, if you will, then that's totally different. Let me explain. Money in the Bank this year was basically to introduce the concept that Raw and SmackDown can have their own Money in the Bank winners. The WrestleMania Money in the Bank is a Raw vs. SmackDown match, if you will. And the winner of that Money in the Bank match at WrestleMania gets to choose who to cash in against. It doesn't have to be against the brand's champion. It could be against any brand's champion. That's just about it. It could be against any brand's champion. I mean, look at Jack Swagger. Yeah, he cashed it in a little early, and it was a mistake to let him do that. But he was a Raw guy, and he went to SmackDown, cashed it in on Chris Jericho, and became world champion. That automatically, if you will, drafts that person that cashes in the bank, Money in the Bank briefcase and becomes champion over to that brand. That's another advantage of it. It's also sort of like the prelude to the draft. Like as soon as that person cashes in, either it's real quickly or months later, that's sort of like a prelude, because you don't know who this person's going to cash it in against, and you don't know which show he could do it on. That's the whole situation with Money in the Bank at WrestleMania. The Money in the Bank the Money in the Bank pay-per-view, the matches there are basically specifically made for different brands. That's why that pay-per-view came to be. Now, Fatal 4-Way, I think that was the pay-per-view they did this year. A lot of people feel as though that shouldn't have been made because that was ridiculous. It's true, that shouldn't have been made this year, but you know what? It was made because, believe it or not, whether it's a successful gimmick pay-per-view or not, it actually attracts people. People love those kind of matches. Whether the individuals involved in the matches can wrestle or not, they love those kind of matches because basically it allows, I guess in the eyes of the fans and in the eyes of the executives, if you will, the 4 top people or the 3 top contenders to wrestle the champion, to wrestle each other as well as the champion for the title. And it's also one of those unpredictable matches because you never know when or who's going to walk out with the championship. You don't know that. Nobody does. That's why these kind of pay-per-views are always around. Extreme Rules, yeah, you know, some people say Extreme Rules shouldn't be around because WWE doesn't allow violence. And Jeff brought up a good point. During the Randy Orton John Cena Extreme Rules match a couple years ago, about a year or so ago, I guess it was about a year ago or so, they actually had medics come out during the match and try to clean up the blood off John Cena's face. That wasn't just, you know, last year at Extreme Rules. They also did it, believe it or not, at TLC in the match between Christian and Shelton Benjamin. Christian ended up bleeding, I guess, from the forehead or something like that, and the medics came out and they started cleaning him up. And now I can understand people booing. Now I can understand that that's a complete waste of time and that shouldn't be. And I can understand the fans hating that. But what are you going to do? WWE has an image now to protect. Or at least they have someone's image to protect, if you will, in certain cases. Someone's image, and you know who that someone is. But again, as far as I'm concerned, I really don't have a problem with the pay-per-views, with the exception of either the fact that they're too close together, and 2, if you keep constantly having medics come out there and cleaning people up in case they bleed. In case you haven't noticed, WWE's actually lit up a little bit. I mean, if it's got like a scab or a bloody nose or something like that, no big deal. But if they're gushing out like crazy, then that's a problem. I mean, if it's just like a little scrape and it's like that, it's probably no big deal to them now. Because they realize, you know, they probably hear the fans. They're probably like, oh shit, you know, we keep this up, we're going to lose our fans. You know, so I'm pretty sure like a little scab, nosebleed, maybe a cut up here going down to here, it's no big deal. What they're more worried about is the fact that someone could be bleeding and cover the whole face. That's what they're worried about. If they feel that cut's going to be too severe, then that's what they're worried about. That's what they're worried about. So, but anyway, again, I really have no problem with them. As long as they have enough time to build the pay-per-views, they're not like short notice pay-per-views, like 2 weeks, 1 week in advance, or 1 week, 2 weeks, 1 week later. And as long as they don't have the medics and stuff come out when people get cut or hurt, you know, if they have a little scrape, leave it be. Still a big deal. But I really have no problem with these pay-per-views whatsoever. Because if you take a look at pay-per-views like, say, Elimination Chamber, usually now that's used to either name a #1 contender for both brands, or to decide who's going to be champion. And just like with Fatal 4-Way, it's always unpredictable because you don't know if the champion is going to walk out with the title. So, anyway, that's just my response to Jeff Meacham's Talk Wrestling HD episode today about the Gimmick pay-per-views and how I feel about them. Let me know what you feel about them, and I'll talk to you all later.